Patrick?
At the intersection.
What's he doing?
He's just standing there. Menacingly!
Well, Kyle, that was boring as hell.
Welcome back to MMO Town. Look, there's nothing wrong with that. There is nothing wrong
MMO
with that.
Town. It's not just MMO Town, dude. Fetch Quest MMO Town.
Okay. Okay. We were heavily warned about Stormblood. And
we were, but we were heavily warned about A Realm Reborn.
I'm curious about the MMO philosophy of it. Because A Realm Reborn was building an entire world. We had to constantly go across the globe using the teleport system in order to care about all these various places that were being invaded by an evil empire. Then Heavensward happens, which is but a small side. Ishgard is a wart on the top of Eorzea that we already know, a very beautiful wart, and I loved it. But we're still interacting, and what is under threat is our main world that we've come to build in A Realm Reborn. So Stormblood is the expansion where we, as it were, go to an island. Here we're going to the same continent, we're still on the same land, but we are exploring more of the world, and they had to do that somehow. We had to find a way to care about an area very quickly and meet a lot of people very quickly. So I ask everyone, could they have done it differently? These fetch quests were extremely functional in the fact that they made you meet a lot of people very fast.
Yeah, you have a different definition of fast.
You met a lot of people.
Where we left off was great, truly great. I'm very interested in what appears to be the villain of this expansion. Could be wrong. I don't know. So far, Final Fantasy XIV has been a hell of an adventure, and I tend to be wrong when I think I know where things are going. So I don't want to plant too permanent a flag anywhere. Once we get to the climax of Rauger's Reach as part of the intro of Stormblood, I think it gets excellent. But it starts slow and boring and grindy, and then it ends with this bombastic event that shakes everything up. And when I think about that, Kyle, I think I realize it's like a modern WoW expansion in reverse.
Oh, were all the shakeups at the very beginning, and instead this
modern WoW expansions start great and then bore you to death to the point where you go and seek out other game experiences.
And I would say this is better. This pays off your journey through meeting all those NPCs and doing those fetch quests with something you now care about because you had to interact with all those NPCs. And that's why I ask, could this have been done better? Is there another way that an MMO could perform this task of introducing you to a land and its peoples in this amount of time?
That's an interesting thought, because my brain goes to a place where I almost want to defend something that I didn't particularly enjoy. Does that make sense? Are you following this?
Go for it.
I think, yes, if you go, could this have been handled better? I just go, yeah, just for the love of God, shorten it. Like I got it after talking to the first old dude in the area with the kind of dumb looking mountains. They kind of look like the piles of Triceratops shit from Jurassic Park. There's all the mountains just look like Triceratops turds. Like Lyse is like, she has this moment before you go in, and she's talking about how she's kind of afraid about returning to her homeland. And Mefred's like, it might not be so bad. Like, you are one of us. You're from here. But then you go and you meet that first old dude quest giver, and they just lay it on so thick about how much he's like, you left, we don't care. But they take, 70 sentences to drill in the same point, which is that this dude doesn't give a crap what Lyse is peddling. He is not picking up what she is putting down. He doesn't care. As far as he's concerned, she left. She abandoned her people. He does not see it as Mefred does, or as some of the other Alamegans. But this is where I almost want to defend it, even though I didn't enjoy it, because this is Final Fantasy XIV. This is a meaty game from a writing standpoint. They take their time. Everything is written out to extreme lengths. Every character, be it a side minor quest character to our heroes get to say their piece, and we get to explore them as characters. And so I think the slow burn works. I just think it took too long, but I also wouldn't expect anything different from this game because this game really does flesh everything out.
And maybe it is just role play. Have you met old people? They like to talk. Therefore, old person is going to take a really long time to talk. Maybe we should have read into the fact that we were meeting unnamed guards, which is bizarre for this game. I mean, like every guard in Ishgard has a name, and these were just like jovial guard, concerned guard. Maybe that we should just take a cue that everyone who has no name is dead in classic like Austin Powers logic.
But they're not. Meffred had a name, and Meffred's dead.
That is true. He was the sacrificial part of the story. He was carrying the weight. Someone had to die there, and it wasn't going to be Y'shtola, apparently.
No, it wasn't. Which remind me to come back to that.
Yes, we will come back to that. We will also come back to Lyse. My frustration in that opening fetch quests section came from the fact that we were passing by so many awesome things. There were war-torn battlefields, there were crashed airships, there were giant robot parts thrown about. There were interesting new monster models. In particular, we very briefly visited like the double pyramid ziggurat of the Ratmen, and it was entirely interesting, and I can't wait to see what primal they get pissed off and summon, yet we got right the heck out of there. It was those visits of like, this is going to get interesting, and then right on back to getting somebody's socks warmed.
To me, it like I'm here to say, like at the end, it is effective. It's just it took really long to get to that point, especially since it seemed like this expansion was opening with a need to go. We had a new primal that have we even mentioned it? It like crash landed in this world, and it's like, we gotta go, we gotta deal with this. And then, hey, Sonny, could you go talk to this person who's gonna tell you to go talk to that person? And it just like all momentum was lost.
Well, we were reminded by the NPCs that we ourselves did not see it, and therefore it is still a mystery as to what happened to Omega and our new primal.
So wait, we don't know that it crash landed in Alamega?
They were tracking Omega, and they thought they knew where Omega crashed. But when they went to that site, nothing was there. So it's a mystery for all. Nobody knows what happened to our mysterious robot / primal.
Yeah, I would think you'd be more concerned about that than, like, meeting the locals.
This didn't come out of left field, which I'll give it credit for. So Meffred was actually part of that really early on quest about the Alamegans, where there was, like, the shirtless dudes hanging out in the place with the stuff. Like, it wasn't
where you go join Palace of the Dead with all the shirtless dudes standing around like it's a Hollister circa 2005.
Exactly. And you do that like whole side quest to them. That this seems so out of left field. This was so random that you helped out these random Alamegans who were like talking about their lost homeland or something, and it's really confusing. And eventually, like, Ilbert starts playing into that, and you got Rob on there, and, like, he's going on about it. So, like, it builds, but here we take a direct... All of this Alamegan storyline has been like, remember those characters that you briefly saved in side quests? We're picking them up. Bam. That's the Griffin's stand-in. Bam. Here's Ilbert. Bam. Here's Mifrid. But expanding the globe is something that Final Fantasy didn't have to do to this point yet. And this is their first trial at that.
I think they have, because and I think it's something the game does very well, because at the end of A Realm Reborn, they tease Heavensward by literally showing us Ishgard. And when we visit Dravania, it's there in the distance. You can see the city. You just can't go there. And we hear about the Ishgardians, and we interact with the Ishgardians, but we just haven't visited their homeland. So with the end of A Realm Reborn, they tease where we're going in Heavensward, and at the end of Heavensward, they tease where we're going in Stormblood. So I disagree. I think that's something that's been very well done, and honestly might be the challenge of Stormblood, right? Because it's not so obvious. It's not as obvious as this city on a cliff in the distance like there is in Ishgard. It's not something they can very easily show us as a set piece, because it's like a continent. It's an entire region. Which, granted, we visited essentially new continents as well in Heavensward, but Ishgard like is this very easy visual representation of the adventure are about to embark on. And that's something I don't think they had with Alamigo.
And now you got me countering my own points, because it's not like we didn't expand the globe. We had the Sea of Clouds, which is completely made up, if you will, as a whole new zone. You have the Highlands, the Western Central. You got Idleshire and all the areas around it. There was a lot of expansion to the globe in that way, but I guess it didn't feel like it was part of the mainland, even though it was. Or maybe it's just dragons. Maybe dragons are just so powerful that we say, hey, I want to kick dragon butt. They say, right this way. And we go, excellent, where am I going? Whereas when you say there's a mysterious political imperialization effort going on with the Alamegans who you are now meeting, we go, wait, what now?
By way of having dragons only appear in this one zone in A Realm Reborn, and then also kind of ushering you into the expansion, it's a thematic shift. And it really places that conflict in a specific area and adds a unique visual association with the conflict in Heavensward, right? Whereas in Stormblood, it shouldn't be much more subtle, right? Because it didn't start subtle. We start with the wall and mass death and the summoning of a primal by way of essentially suicide. Like, it was bombastic. But again, that's where I was coming from. I felt like I was coming off of that. Like, we have an urgent need to move forward, and we run straight into a war table.
What they're trying to capture is a civil war atmosphere, which requires a lot of small skirmishes, hitting supply lines. When we did the quest with Robin, Big Robbie, we were striking down a Magitech suit moving through an area before it could be fully activated or released on the people. And the whole reason why Rhalgr's Reach got attacked is because we were off on another little skirmish. Embodying that in an MMO where everything is more scripted is really difficult. Frankly, it would work better in like an open world game. The open world games would have their own issues where like you had to collect enough supply tokens to advance the story to the next part, and the zone would change in that way. So it's a very, very difficult thing to capture.
I feel like I can imagine what this was like at the time, where you're seeing a lot of players and you start to think of Rhalgr's Reach as your hub, right? And then they just rip it out from under you. And that I respect the hell out of, because it really was effective. And that's what I'm saying. Like, we left off finishing the major scenario at the attack on Rhalgr's Reach. It felt like a natural stopping point for the intro to Stormblood, facing down Zenos. And I don't think it would have been as effective. So like, yeah, we can sit here and we can armchair game develop. How do you make this intro spicier, snappier? At the end of the day, I'm not sure it really matters, because to me it was effective. Like, I get why a lot of people kind of look at this and they're like, yeah, this is kind of a low point for the game, and I agree. But the base drop of the attack on Rhalgr's Reach is effective, and I don't think you need all of this, but you need some of this. You need to find if you do want to go back and retool this, if that is somewhere where your head's at, or maybe it's somewhere where the developers' heads are at, you need to distill this intro down to still selling you on Rhalgr's Reach and making it feel like it's safe. There's all these things where it got me to feel settled in, and they rip it away from you. That's where this totally worked for me.
Let's talk about Lyse, because this was one of the primary points that people seem to have struggles with, which we didn't. We like Lyse. I think for the most part, we're pretty down with Lyse being the leader of the party. And I wonder how much of that was our MSQ vacation. Like, we took time away from Alphino being the ringleader. We went and did a bunch of side content. We basically did what the game would have you do if you were, playing in real time. It would be a month or two between the final content and the release of Stormblood before you got to interact with the main party again, which gives Lyse time to grow. So when she walked up kind of more realized, it wasn't so out of left field. And maybe for people who are just plowing straight through this, you go, Lyse, what are you doing leading this party?
Yeah, and I actually find her a bit refreshing, if I'm going to be honest. Alphino's really grown for me. If you go back and watch our Realm Reborn videos, I found him to be grating. But I really did like him. By the end of Heavensward, I like Alphino a lot. I think he's a really strong, well-written character. But that doesn't mean I still can't find Lyse refreshing, because Lyse is much more straightforward. Alphino's... I don't think he sees himself as a kingmaker, but he is. The dude is like constantly thinking about the big picture like at all times. Whereas what we have with Lyse is a much more personal story. Like Lyse, as someone new to this and who didn't start with Ida because I didn't level in Gridania at the beginning, she's relatively new to me, and she's a pretty simple character in my mind, which is like she's just this fighter who feels guilty about leaving her homeland. And that guilt is now coming up to the forefront because she has returned. The political brakes have been pulled at the beginning of Stormblood. There's a lot of world building and stage setting. Like, we're going to really drive home that the Alamegans are having a tough time. Lyse is a nice offset from that because her motivations are simple and straightforward. And I got excited when she ran up to punch Zenos in the face. Let's talk about where this got awesome, which is the attack on Rauger's Reach and just enter Zenos.
The box cover villain. So at the very least, we can be reassured that this is what we're supposed to believe is our main villain for the entire expansion. And what a setup with the imperialistic takeover of Rauger's Reach's music.
Beyond majestic mountains, across the emerald
Oh my
taking
God.
their theme song and placing it on top of the people that they're taking over is so history. You can't help but work. And of course, Zenos, kills a guard. Like, that's classic villain trope number 47.
Young Darth Vader energy, like A New Hope. It's something I really like, and I think about a lot, especially as we're like returning to mind the depths of Star Wars, right? Like Vader in A New Hope, it only gets worse for him from there. When we see Vader in A New Hope, he's living his best life. Things are going great for him. His empire is at the peak of their power, and they've just completed their super weapon. They feel unbeatable, and that's how Zenos feels in this. Like Vader squaring up against Obi-Wan in the hallway, he knows he's gonna win. He's stoked. He's just like, yep, cool. Let's go, old man. I'm gonna destroy you. And that's Zenos walking into Rauger's Reach. He just knows like no one's gonna measure up against him. And then we get out of the Star Wars analogy once we actually step up to him as the Warrior of Light, because that's where Zenos then gets into like my favorite like anime trope of the villains that's just hungry for an equal battle.
Yeah, the slow walk during that entire little independent trial you did there, where I assume we got introduced to future mechanics for the actual battle we'll have when we leveled up. I wonder how much of this is going to be actively played through. Like, are we going to be looking for secret weapons, ways to defeat Zenos? Will we be exploring the golf bags lore and why the swords spin? I know that the Garleans don't have access to magic, so they use technology to overcome their lack of magic.
Magitech.
Exactly.
Magical technology.
And Zenos is pulling out a freshly spun sword and using it to do a blast of magical energy. So the golf bag supplies magic to the swords, and who doesn't love somebody who brings 20 blades for a battle and discards them as soon as they're dented? Like that's a great just trope, great energy in the room, and I really look forward to kicking Zenos' butt. And what a great like D&D advanced Gary Gygax name for a villain, just Zenos.
Also, I dig that he's using small swords. Because Zenos, like, a hell of a presence, just giant armor, giant figure. And when I think of Final Fantasy, as someone that hasn't played a lot of them, I think giant swords. So I like that he's got these more slender swords. It's a nice visual offset from how large his armor is. I'm in. Like I know we started this off talking about how, hey, we just played through the part that everyone warns you about in Final Fantasy, the beginning of Stormblood, and they're right to warn. It's a little slow, to put it mildly. But like I said, it was effective in getting me feeling settled in to this area that felt safe and wasn't at all. And I don't even feel like our friends are safe, right? Like, because Zenos walks in and immediately cuts down probably my favorite member of the Scions in Y'shtola. Like, I was just like, oh God, no. And like, I believed that she was going to die because Final Fantasy XIV is happy as a clam to kill off main characters. I think it's the first time in my life I've been surprised that they didn't kill a main character in a fiction I was watching. So like so many other things, like I love Dragon Ball Z. They bring mofos back constantly. Marvel, don't even get me started. I'm just counting the days before they bring back Iron Man. But here, so many of our friends have died that the fact that we heal up Y'shtola and she's okay is a legitimate surprise to me.
And I helped. they programmed it, so I helped. There's a lot of people who could have used help throughout the entire thing and some healing, but they did give me a little moment and I got to participate in the Y'shtola heal. Though I think we were both a little concerned that Pippin just like disappeared off the face of the earth somewhere in that fight. Like he was going to be the mysterious side death where someone's going to be like, hey, where's Pippin?
I was waiting because Raubahn shows up and it's just, it's horrible. There's dead bodies everywhere. And I just wanted Raubahn to be concerned. I just wanted a moment of him just being like, where is Pippin? Also, great character growth for Raubahn.
Yeah, with the not charging. Yeah, he didn't want to lose his other arm.
So good, dude. It's basic stuff, but God, they really like the digital camera work in this game. It's always effective. I literally started this video off talking about, for the love of God, could you have cut down some of your dialogue? For a game I feel sometimes is a little laborious with having people tell you how things are as opposed to showing you. This was a wonderful, just dialogue-free moment of showing me how this character has grown. Damn it, dude, this game is good. Even when I'm like here, like I'm thinking of it, like I'm not even joking. I sat here. We record these in the morning, so I get up in the morning. I have my coffee. I sit here. I organize the footage, and I sit there and I think about what I'm gonna say, where my head is at for the topic of the day's video. And I was sitting there this morning, and I was just like, I was worried because our arc, you and I going through this game together, has been really positive. It's just me really enjoying this game. And I was worried. I was like, man, the more I think about Stormblood, the more I'm like, I didn't love it so far. Like this is probably going to be our most critical video. And I guess I'm just worried about that. But I want to be honest. I want to be like, yeah, it wasn't my favorite. And I want to have that conversation. But then I thought about where we left off. And I was just like, it was so good. And it was so effective. I don't think I would have gasped. I don't think I would have felt, I felt as a player, this strong need to run in and just go at Zenos. And I really wanted to. And so I felt better. I was like really ready. I was like, I'm so ready for Kyle to show up. I was like, that's the arc. Because that's the opening of Stormblood. It starts kind of boring, but it's lulling you into a false sense of security. It makes you feel safe so that it can make you feel like you just lost everything. Because you did.